Mesh! Gilgamesh! Gilgamesh! Don't do that. That's retarded. Hey, Mikey. Today we start from the beginning.
A very good place to start.
Indeed. Today we learn about Mesopotamia, the Fertile Crescent, the cradle of civilization. And we start from the beginning.
A real good place to start.
Yes. And learn where civilization got its start. That's what's coming up today on STUDIO214.
The resources used for this presentation are the historical and chronological context of the Bible by Bruce Gore and Gardner's Art Through the Ages, as well as other online resources and lectures. Links are in the description. The land between the rivers, that's what the Greeks called it. Of course, the people living there called it something different. A large cast of characters and civilizations existed, and they were not united, although they did share language, religion, heritage, probably ethnicity, to a large extent anyway, at this particular time.
Well, dang. It's like the Greeks later. They shared almost everything. A lot of things they had were in common, except their hometown. So they hated each other, naturally.
The people of Mesopotamia situated themselves into city-states that often warred with each other and fought for dominance. This includes, but is certainly not limited to, Akkad, Nippur, Eridu, Uruk, just to name a few.
Now, Mike, this is a special area because this is the first time in human history that specialization in non-food production began, and urbanization occurred, which is a fancy name for people who are organized, living together, specializing in their trade or craft in large numbers.
This is incredibly important in our history because without those people coming together and working together, many things we take for granted couldn't be here. Let's examine some. We all like eating stuff. Well, Mesopotamia pioneered agriculture. Before then, humans were hunter-gatherers. We wandered from place to place, hunted the game, ate the wild growing fruits and vegetables, and when the game and grub was all gone, we got up and left and went to the next area.
This, by the way, is one of the worst ways to make use of the land. We come in, we use up all the resources. When it's all gone, we get up to the next and set up and use up all their resources until they are gone too. Then up and move on to the next until it's done. And then up and next to the next until it's gone. And it keeps on going. And very bad for the environment. Also really bad if other people groups, tribes, clans, or whatever, also occupy the same general area. The American Indians, well, a lot of them anyway, survived in such ways. It worked for them because America is huge. But even then, they still got in each other's way. This is also bad because a finite amount of resources are available, and the people using them did not do anything to sustain the usability of the area.
Nature and the earth needs time to replenish itself and for game to reoccupy the area. In the relatively close proximity of Mesopotamia, the resources available could only sustain the people for a short amount of time. Something had to give.
I mean, it wasn't like they could just get up and keep going. There's desert in all directions. Mountains over here, Zagros. Which some people dig. Whole cultures lived and thrived in the desert, and still do today. Thrive. Well, they live there anyway, they don't die. In mass numbers. All the time.
But that isn't for everyone, and the early Mesopotamians chose to stay and work together. They built their societies up from nothing. They had to have good tools to fight off other people living so close and to use as agricultural implements. The competition with other city-states in the area, and really we see this trend all over the world at different times, and that's that competition breeds innovation. For instance, take wild aurochs, a now extinct early cow. It was domesticated, used for milk, meat, and as beasts of burden. Now one farmer could plow, plant, reap, and sow, and he could now pack up his goods and bring them to market on his pack animals, which invariably led to the wheel. And now they could really start cultivating their society.
Mike, when all you do all day, like hunter-gatherers did, is wake up, look for food, eat, then back to sleep to do it all over again, well, you don't have time for the good stuff in life. Art, music, poetry, writing, mathematics, architecture, anything you can think of. Not really possible without the ability to focus time and attention on it. And if you don't got food in mass quantities, you can't do that.
It's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, but for civilization.
Simply put, the ancients in prehistory were too busy trying to survive to waste time on dalliances like music. All this changed once we started setting up cities and societies with agriculture, both farming and animal husbandry, and could devote time to focus on the good stuff.
Very likely this is how it went. A strong chieftain of a people group set up his tent in a place that he could defend and grow things on. As his power increased and his food stores got larger and larger, more people came, either through births or through conquest or immigration. The environment of Mesopotamia was nutrient rich and it had water, but mostly from the rivers, not so much from the rain. So to really grow things, you had to be by the water. Well, it didn't take long for them to figure out if you had a farm that wasn't right on the river, you had to dig a trench and siphon off some of the water from the river to irrigate your fields. Boom. Agriculture. Also, you can't set up a farm just anywhere. Some pieces of land don't go up nice and smoothly into the river, and some places are needed to fish. Some could be protected, others could not. And so these first settlements tended to group in very likely, obvious places. Places where there was easy access to the rivers or the coast, places that could be irrigated. The choice digs in ground to give your village the push it needed to grow and sustain itself, and turn into a city. As these populations increased, the need for more elaborate and extensive irrigation was needed. With this ever-increasing demand on the resources, some sort of leadership or bureaucracy was needed to organize the people. With this organization came forth innovations and evolutions of crops from primitive to domesticated breeds, making yields go up and allowing for market and diversification of product.
If old farmer Arderach is growing lentils and growing enough to feed the city and trade, then the wise play would be to grow, say, chickpeas or wheat or something other than lentils.
One people group had cattle, another had sheep, another grew lentils, another wheat, and on and on and on. And the people group specialized. Except now, they needed soldiers and a security force because with wealth comes people trying to take your wealth.
Now you need a leader and generals and of course farmers and shepherds to support them, food growers to support the ever-growing list of people who do other things that isn't growing food.
So people organized even more. These command economies could be rallied and supported according to the needs of the people, as ascertained by the leadership, of course. They told the farmers and cattle merchants what to grow, when to grow, where to graze their herds, everything. This made them have to keep records, because you can't organize if you don't keep records of who is doing what and when they are doing it, on top of how much they are contributing. And so the earliest forms of writing started to appear. At first, at least that is what the records we have been able to find show, at first people started writing to keep track for tax purposes. In a command economy like Mesopotamia, central planning is a must, which means that there are a lot of people hanging out and making a living that don't produce food. This can be a huge problem. The king needs to pay his soldiers, otherwise the soldiers will find another king who will pay them. The king also needs to pay his bureaucrats, the people in charge of implementing the royal edicts, as in where to plant, what to plant, when to plant, all that stuff. He also needed to pay the scribes that write down all the transactions. That's a huge one, because the writing style they forged was very, very tricky. It took highly trained people years to learn to read and write. But without them, nobody could accurately keep track of anything, and the whole system could fail. Which is kind of a contributing factor in what happened during the Bronze Age collapse. But that is a different story, still several hundred years in the future.
For now, we're going to take a look at one area in Mesopotamia, in two periods. We are interested right now in Sumer, and the Ubaid and Uruk expansions. But that's all for today. Remember, Mike, prehistory happened a long time ago. Different people say different things and quote different times. What I'm telling you is that we have evidence of humans being around for thousands of years. We go from nothing to complex human civilizations within a few hundred years. Within 1,000, we see writing develop, the wheel, religion, kingdoms, agriculture, all the blueprints for society we have today. Speaking of such things, next time we're going to talk about the first organized urbanization in the world. Now that we know, or have a good idea on how civilization probably got started. We will look at where it got started. Thanks for watching, everybody. Make sure to stay tuned and to subscribe to get all the videos. Till then, see you then.